Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to an episode of my F1 2021 My Team Career Mode, episode number 93 today for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in Season 6. If you guys did miss the previous episode, an absolute whirlwind of an episode at the Monaco GP, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. That was probably the most chaotic Monaco race we've had on this game, and actually at the same time, the best result we've had out of Monaco GP. Spoiler alert, we didn't quite get the win. We got close, but I'm also kind of happy to see Esteban Ocon do quite well, get his first win for Scuderia Ferrari, and Ferrari's first ever win this season. Could that, knock on wood, be the start of, some sort of something for Ferrari this season? Probably not, based on the history of them in this career mode series, but you never know, But Antonio Giovinazzi still leads the way by some distance then to the rest of us. Valtteri Bottas still somehow hanging on to second place despite some difficult races for Mercedes in the last two, and he's got the shed load of points for Mercedes up there in third place in the constructors. We are up into third place now. We've leapfrogged George Russell and Mick Schumacher there after Russell. Well, to be fair to Russell, I was going to kind of, say we finally overtaken him, but to be honest, it was only through some really bad luck for him, because he was dominating that race, leading it when since he jumped Ocon early on that pit stop, and then had a DNF, an engine failure, under a safety car. So both of us have had one apiece. In the other races, though, we've been a bit more consistently higher up in, fourth, and in second place in Monaco. So we lead our teammate in what has become one of our biggest rivals in this entire career series. Obviously, with the amount of chaos and DNFs we had at Monaco, it was a very up and down episode last time out for a few different teams. Williams double DNF, they'll be annoyed. The same for the reigning Constructors Champions, McLaren, with both Norris and Tsunoda out there. AlphaTauri, Leclerc, he'll be bitterly disappointed again at his home Grand Prix. It ends in misery, and then Gasly only hobbled through for 8th place. Lotus Renault getting a couple of points in there as they try and punch up towards the midfield of this grid. It's so tightly packed towards that kind of bottom end that there really isn't a kind of, apart from Haas, there isn't a back marker. The rest of them are very much just in one big midfield, and to be honest, I don't really know where the midfield, starts and ends, really, because it's quite a consistent load of points all the way up, obviously, then towards Mercedes in P3, ourselves, and Red Bull Racing. Red Bull appear to be the big ones, though, that we need to try and aim and charge for, as both Schumacher and Giovinazzi this season are actually scoring some decent points. Well into the race weekend, then, as we end Q1, and it's a formality for us. Ferrari are looking strong, but as I said, I'm not buying it yet. The amount of times I've had to, talk about Ferrari maybe being finally there, and then lo and behold, they're just not. So let's just wait and see. But Ocon, the race winner, up there in second place with his teammate Carlos Sainz. A kind of checkerboard of AlphaTauri, Mercedes, Red Bull, Norris up there in P8, Tsunoda again struggling on that other McLaren, not adapting to the car in a very similar fashion to maybe Ricciardo adapting in real life to that very different piece of machinery. We're now into Q2 then. This is where everything hots up a little bit more, and it's a little bit stiff of a feeling in the car, I've got to be honest there. There was a bit of understeer into turn 1, taking a bit too much curve then on turn 2, and generally I don't know what happened from the circuit from Q1 to Q2, but the car just felt a little bit just worse for me, and I wasn't just performing as well as I could. That first lap, really not that great. You can see there 6/10 off on the top left there to what was the fastest time at the time is Ocon. Now it's Carlos Sainz. So again, the Ferraris actually showing some genuine, really good pace in both of them there. So this may just be a Ferrari track this episode. I don't know. But Tsunoda actually now maybe listens to what I was saying and is up there with Lando Norris. And we've got to go again, as well as George Russell. Russell, though, he tried to qualify on mediums and it just didn't work. So now he's set the fast lap of the entire session. So he's going to be comfortably into the top 10 shootout. We are in the drop zone at the moment. P11, bit of squirreling on the rear end there. Oversteer, 2 green sectors. So no purples there for us, even though we're looking pretty, well, we're looking a bit faster in Q1, I think, with at least one purple sector somewhere in there. But let's now go to the line. This is crucial for us. This should be enough, though, I would say, to comfortably get us through into the top 10. But it's, the fact we needed a second run is not that great for us in terms of just, getting, bang in there, one run done. But there was a purple last sector in there, so we can find a little bit of pace, but the track evolving a little bit away from where it was in Q1, I feel, with generally the lap times, you know, well, for some of us slowing down in some cases, but Russell looking strong there, showing that it may be us versus Ferrari, because Red Bull, well, Giovinazzi's through, but Schumacher is out, so that's going to be disappointing for them as they try and continue their consistent point scorers, and AlphaTauri and McLaren do look better, and I'm actually very surprised. I actually shouldn't have said anything about Tsunoda, because he's right there in the top 10 then, and both Mercedes have actually had a bit of a howler, because I thought both of them would be, you know, decently fighting for the top 10 positions, but no, both of them solidly out of this one. Very weird session then for a couple of teams in there, and as per usual with commentators, sometimes absolutely just the opposite of what you think is going to happen happens, as the McLarens both make it through. I think though for the first time this entire season though, I think so, you can cut me some slack in that regard, but Azerbaijan, a very unique circuit, you know, it's a street circuit, but you need so much straight line speed to make sure you have the lap time, so a very different challenge to Monaco. But we're now through into the top 10 shootout, and this is our second lap of the entire session. The first one, it didn't show you because there's no point, it was a very slow lap on a set of worn out soft tyres, because of course I had to use an extra set in Q2 to make this session. So this is it then, one lap to get it done. Obviously on the top right, the delta time is going to be massively up because we're on fresh tyres now versus some very old soft tyres, but you can see overall a very messy lap, getting a bit too over aggressive, I'd say over driving the car a bit, wanting to brake a little bit later, use a bit more curb, but just, you know, with this kind of circuit, you have to be very patient and kind of not overdrive the car and just have a steady hand with trying to avoid the curbs, because most of them don't help you around here, unlike maybe other circuits. So it's not a great lap, I don't think. We're going to be 2 seconds up, which sounds odd to say, but obviously that's because of that first slower lap, and across the line, and it's P9. It's P9. What is that lap? That was our slowest lap of the entire weekend. We just did not put it together. I don't know what it was. It was almost like with more practice, with more laps under my belt as we went on through qualifying, I got worse in terms of doing a qualifying run. Russell up on the second row alongside Leclerc. The two Ferraris, though, lock out the front row. So I mean, in qualifying, at least, again, Ferrari are there, but can they convert it to a race win? Who knows? But Ocon, the race winner of Monaco, is there, but Sainz was the one on pole position. The AlphaTauri is looking very strong indeed, both of them beating Giovinazzi in the more senior Red Bull Porsche, and the McLarens, an okay showing. They'll be happy with that, being close to a Red Bull, you know, the championship leaders at the moment, but that's more so because McLaren have been so poor so far this season, and maybe Giovinazzi in the Red Bull clearly maybe not as quick as they were in previous races around this circuit. And for us, well, I don't have much to say really, just really poor lap. Not as poor as Guan Yu Zhou, but for us, I have no answer, just really didn't put it together. We can clearly see the car has some pace in there, and if I set my Q1 lap time, I think we would have been splitting the AlphaTauri's thing just about. So yeah, I mean, just no excuses, just have to try and make up for it now on Sunday.
Good afternoon and welcome to Baku. This was the arena, if you think back to 2017, of one of the most eventful races of modern history, with controversy behind the safety car, last-second overtakes, and a historic podium for Williams and for Lance Stroll. So let's find out what lies in store for us this year. It's time for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. The Baku city circuit measures roughly 6 kilometers and is made up of 20 corners and 2 DRS zones. The circuit winds around the narrow city, through the old town, and even brushes against the city's medieval walls. However, as beautiful as the setting is, this track is also a ferocious technical challenge, where the smallest of mistakes could lead to catastrophic consequences for all of our drivers. Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box, and it's fantastic to have you with us here today, but I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
From the moment qualifying's over, you start to feel the adrenaline in your body build up and the buzz in your stomach as you anticipate the run down into turn 1. It's all a bit like going into battle, and the unknown situation makes you nervous. Those pre-race nerves are a good thing. The day you don't have them means that you don't care anymore. And of course, you have to make sure that all the procedures are second nature to you, so that they're not taking up too much of your capacity.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. It's Carlos Sainz in pole position, with Esteban Ocon alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Russell, Leclerc, Pierre Gasly and Norris, Giovinazzi, Tsunoda, the owner driver and Guan Yu Zhou, Mick Schumacher, Bottas, Max Verstappen and Lundgaard, Aitken, Matsushita, Lance Stroll and Lewis Hamilton, Eilert, Tictum, Armstrong and Felipe Drugovich. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today?
So plenty to do here on Sunday to make up for a less than ideal qualifying for ourselves. Just didn't get the laps together, but now we need to string together a whole race to try and get a decent haul of points and at least get up there, you know, and try and be where Russell is in the same piece of machinery on the second row alongside Leclerc. In terms of strategy, it's going to be a two-stop either way, actually, you know, if you're going to use a hard compound tyre or medium, so maybe not much difference in strategy. So even more so, we have to get our head down and just get the lap times in, because there's, you know, nowhere to kind of hide with no difference in strategy from car to car, from team to team. So here we go then to the Azerbaijan Grand Prix as we go to 5 red lights here in Baku. The lights are out and we're on the way to slow start for the McLaren of Tsunoda on the left-hand side of us. We're going to try and go sailing around the outside of Giovinazzi, but having to take some avoiding action because Guan Yu Zhou has dive-bombed everyone to the inside there. He forced the Italian in the Red Bull to go a bit wide, and look how aggressive the Chinese man is being right now in the Williams Jaguar. They're cutting across us, hopping over the curb. We're going to try and make an overtake to get up into P8, but being very wary that at the moment Zhou is driving very erratically, very aggressive, and getting the elbows out, and so we're seeing Giovinazzi, the man we're trying to overtake, pulling away then in P7 as we got shoved off a little bit at turn 1. But now we're going to try and come back, and it's a very aggressive move on the Williams man, but had to be done because I feel like otherwise Zhou's going to, you know, hold us up so much. We really need to get a move on and not get held up by a Williams that's kind of awkwardly quick in a straight line, but maybe just doesn't have the downforce in the corners, and we need to use his clean air to catch up to Giovinazzi, who tail ends the train of Norris up to the 2 AlphaTauris. Ocon in third and Russell up into second place then. So our teammate has made a crucial overtake to split the Ferraris and now can go chasing after the race lead with Carlos Sainz at the helm in P1 at the moment for Scuderia Ferrari. As we transition on towards the end of lap 3 into 4, having to really wrestle the car through that right-hander on the edge of the grip and downforce, you'd say, as we're gaining on Giovinazzi, looking to make a move now. We've finally caught up to this train, but Gio himself going for a move on Norris there. Purple our sector, though. We are flying through and looking to now get past these two as they're now holding each other up. Norris a bit slow now on the inside, but he goes for the dive on the Italian again. They make contact, and there's definitely got to be a bit of damage for the McLaren. Surely that was a hefty hit to the side pod of Giovinazzi. Maybe even the Red Bull might have damage. It's 3 wide, but we go through on the inside and thread the car like a needle through those two, and we're going to leave them squabbling because they continue to fight there. Norris v Gio turning up to be an absolute classic here in Baku as they're still side by side jockeying for position, and meanwhile we are pulling away so quickly, and there's more contact, and then there's damage now for definite damage for the Red Bull on the front wing. Yep, look at that on the right hand side of the front wing, no end plate there. So the championship leader now will have to make an early pit stop here on lap 4, as well as maybe even Norris in the Vodafone McLaren Mercedes. So those two just a bit too overly aggressive with each other. I mean, more so for the McLaren, I would say, because Gio didn't really look like he was putting up too much of a fight out of the way. He was just there trying to keep it too wide and trying to defend as cleanly as he could, and was kind of getting just pushed into. So that's going to be unfortunate for the championship leader. But at the same time, you know, the tyre wear, because it's quite tricky around here and the undercut can be very good, even with the front wing change, maybe it won't be too horrendous to pit now lap number 4. Meanwhile, for the race lead, this is Russell going for a move on Carlos Sainz. Sainz defends the inside there, but it's going to be Russell who goes right round the outside up into P1 and will lead the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. So our teammate is looking supremely strong on a race weekend where we haven't haven't been getting it together. That is probably the worst scenario for us, but it's happening right here in front of our eyes. And we've got Sainz now struggling maybe for pace, as Ocon now is looking to make a move. The younger Frenchman on the inside, and Sainz, can he actually keep this through? Bit of contact even between the Ferraris. That's not helping either of them, and it is helping Russell. Russell's already pulled 2 seconds on the Ferraris. That's how much time you can lose if you're too busy fighting around this circuit. You know, that was literally a sector and a bit, and he's pulled 2 seconds on them. So Russell in a very dominant lead now, you know, relative to the career mode series. Really, 2 seconds is quite a lot here in Season 6, to be honest, as all the gaps are very, very small between all these drivers. I mean, look at this massive train from Bottas, Tsunoda, Schumacher, Verstappen, Lundgaard there. Lotus Renault versus Mercedes versus Red Bull versus McLaren. You love to see it. So many different teams all in fighting for crucial last points paying positions today, as we are now in from P6. I think Leclerc and Ocon then ahead of me also in for a pit stop. So Russell and Sainz have continued on. I think we are going to get a bit of an undercut on them, and more so for Ocon's sake, he actually might look to jump Sainz then with that earlier pit stop. So I'm surprised Sainz didn't come in himself, being ahead on track, but it's an okay pit stop for us. We're going to come out just about in enough clean air ahead of Dan Ticktum and Marcus Armstrong, both in the Haas. We nearly career into the wall, just making sure we actually outbrake them, but we are going to come through and have a decent amount of clean air to actually work with, and we are already visually gaining on Leclerc. Gasly's there as well, and Carlos Sainz. What did I say? Ocon has jumped Sainz then with that undercut. Really good pit stop then from the Frenchman. But, you know, we're here now with the 2 AlphaTauris, with the 2 Ferraris, and so now it's time to see what we can do. And our tyres are a bit more fired up than Gasly's might be at the pit lane, so we're just trying to suss out there's any way I can make a move, but it's so tricky, you know, a circuit is so tight as this, where the curbs are also just so uninviting. So I want to try and go around the outside like we did with the Williams car, but the AlphaTauri is a much better machine in the corners, and we just can't, you know, make any sort of inroads at the moment. We may just have to be patient. We're getting held up all by a slower BMW Sauber as we go through the castle section, having half a look on Gasly, but that was just wishful thinking, more so just trying to upset him a little bit as he looks in the mirrors. Is too wide, never really goes well in the castle section, but now we are really slogging it out with Gasly through that right-hander, having to go opposite lock to try and stop the car careering towards the right-hand side wall. And now we're looking to make not only 1, but 2, maybe 3 overtakes, 4, I don't know, as we go around the outside of both Ferraris then, Sainz and Ocon. But Esteban Ocon will put a much bigger fight on the inside here as we go into the first sector versus Sainz, which was an easy straight line overtake, and in fact he's been overtaken by Gasly as well. But as Sainz pulls out to make a move to re-overtake Gasly, we've pulled out on the right to try and make a move on Ocon, but he's got us covered off, and so we have to sit behind in P8. But this is good now. We're right in there in the mix with these boys. The only thing is, Russell, he is so much further ahead. I mean, he's got a good couple of seconds on all of us then, and so we really need to, you know, hopefully get past Ocon for one, then try and close up to Leclerc, and both of us try and close up to Russell. We want to try and fight for this race win, but Russell showing some supreme pace, and here he is then in P4, like I said, about, what's that, 4 seconds ahead of Leclerc, who's effectively in second place. Russell effectively in first, because all these guys are yet to pit. Bottas, Schumacher, Verstappen, Lundgaard, all on the medium tyre from the start of this Grand Prix. And Russell's going to need to try and carve his way through, because Leclerc now is actually gaining a few half a second there already on him, as he now goes for a move on Max Verstappen in the Mercedes. The two are side by side, and roll! Verstappen's in the wall! It's a massive crash for the Dutchman, as he's left half in the wall, half on circuit, and the full safety car, I think, is going to be called out. Yep, the virtual, but the full one will eventually be out then for the Dutchman. I don't know if there's contact between Russell and Verstappen. That may be a bit controversial, as Verstappen was in a very different race, but they were allowed to race. No blue flags there, but didn't really see it because it all went so quickly through that camera angle, through the right-hander. Let's have a look then on board with Russell on this replay. Oh, so close, and in the end of it, oh my God, no contact at all. Russell had no doing in that. That was a very uncharacteristic mistake from Verstappen on the curb and gets it all crossed up into the wall. Massive high-speed crash, a very awkward place to park the car up and have the car beast. That's why the safety car's out there. So Verstappen's miserable season in Mercedes just continues on this year. And this race will continue then on to lap 12. Green flag, and we go again. Can't quite make a move into turn 1. Would have been a bit too ambitious there on the Ferrari, but we actually practically push him through turn 1. So maybe we should have just gone for it, but I just thought better not to. And actually instead we're going to get all crossed up ourselves at turn 2. That's going to invite Gasly in. So it's another mistake from us then in this race to allow Gasly in now, this time the AlphaTauri, as we go side by side to re-overtake the man, but in a fight that we really shouldn't even been in, as now Ocon tries to get Lundgaard, but the Lotus Renault really holding him up, and now we're 3 wide, I think this is, through the left and right, on the outside of both of them there. Ocon gets squeezed out. In the end, we can't even get the Lotus Renault, but we do overtake the Ferrari, so ironically, Ocon tried to overtake a car, and instead lost one position and has to defend against the second one, because Gasly in the background there of that camera shot was having a little look, as it seems to be a very joint to the hip sort of fight between the Ferraris and the AlphaTauris today, and we're kind of just in the middle, just vibing really, as we now look to make a move on Christian Lundgaard in the Lotus Renault. He's going to come in though, I would suspect. Yeah, he is, as he's yet to pit off the mediums. Bottas now is finally in, so your running order is indeed George Russell leading the way. Leclerc though only 9/10 behind him, and then a massive 5-second gap to myself as we are defending against Ocon, but we're locking up massively into turn 1, and Ocon has done us with the switchback from right to left up into P3, so you can see why we've got like a massive 5 to now 6-second gap to the race leaders, to our teammate. We are just not performing as well as Russell is this afternoon, and we're really struggling on this set of medium tyres as it's another big lock-up, and we just narrowly missed the wall on the right. Gasly now is overtaking us. It's another launch over a curb, and so things just aren't going very well in this second stint, and we're going to come in. We're going to pit in anyway on this lap, so it's just the timing of it, but kind of showing that those tyres really were very much done for us then. And Ocon as well, he's in. He doesn't really need to be in. I think Ocon could have easily gone a couple of more laps, but he's in as well, so effectively covering us off in a way as we now come in. No front wing damage, so we can't blame it on that. It literally just was the tyres for some reason, but look at the pit stop. Oh, what a blinder by our pit crew, and if this was real life, that would have been a nasty crash. We're still ghosting through Ocon because we're so close together, literally nose to tail, practically inside of each other with the ghosting on the pit lane exit, but we're out in P15 then, just ahead of Lewis Hamilton and Guan Yu Zhou, so both Williams having a bit of a torrid afternoon again at a street circuit, so maybe this season Williams just can't go well at a street venue and they need a more thoroughbred circuit. As we overtake Ocon though in the same place, we actually lost the place to Gasly then, and so being redeemed a little bit initially in this third stint as we make a double overtake on both Hasses as they are fighting each other up into P12. It'll be a few more positions as we enter turn 1. P8 narrowly missing the wall on the left hand side, really wringing the neck out of this car at the moment, trying to find some pace and kind of make up for lost track time and track pace in that second stint. But now the safety car is out for a second time, and Gasly's yet to pit, so annoyingly he actually may now get a free pit stop and jump us, even though we would have comfortably have overtaken him if he had been a normal pit stop. But this is why then the second safety car's come out. The Haas, one of them, can't quite tell which one it is, been overtaken by a McLaren, then gets overtaken by a Red Bull car and gets spun into the wall and is blocking a large portion of the circuit, then reverses into the racing line. So that's why the safety car will be out, because Bottas was just about to come through, and so now the Haas is the right way around. So a smaller incident than the Verstappen one, but causes an equally big impact because Gasly now is here ahead of us in P4. We're in P5. This is the running order then. We've got Russell in P1, Schumacher yet to pit in second place, both AlphaTauris, myself, but we're trying to change that. Can we get in the middle of the AlphaTauris on the inside of Gasly? It's going to be very fine margins, but we're able to squeeze him out. The Frenchman really slow on the exit, I must say, and so he can now fight his fellow compatriot, but very much not friend, Esteban Ocon, as those two have a bitter rivalry in real life. That second safety car then effectively has made a bit of a sprint race at the end of this one, with Russell leading the way, Leclerc in second, and they both have been pulling away from me, and there's a decent gap now to ourselves in third place, and we're looking backwards rather than forwards as Gasly pressurizes us in fourth, and then Ocon not too far behind in fifth place as well. So even though initially I looked quicker than Ocon when we came out the pit lane, again we're struggling on these mediums compared to Russell. I don't know what it is, set up maybe, confidence in the car, whatever the case, we're just not doing as well in the race pace department versus Russell, who unless he makes a mistake or Leclerc really speeds up, I think may look very good for this race win. Unfortunate bad news to our ears, but the remaining top 10 then behind Ocon, Lewis Hamilton in the Williams doing amazingly, it must be said. Norris, Sainz, Giovinazzi, and then Matsushita rounds it out for BMW. That's going to be a very tasty fight between the BM and the Lotus Renault from P10 to P11. Meanwhile, Gasly continues to hound us, and this time actually overtakes us up into P3 with only about a couple of laps to go now in this one. It's a race to the end, low fuel, and it's very intense, but Gasly's got it. But can we try and re-overtake him now on the outside with a DRS assistance? Gasly outbrakes us initially, but we're able to get the right racing line. And as I look behind me, Ocon actually going for a move on Gasly, so that's going to be a little bit interesting as Ocon and Gasly tussle a little bit and lose some time to each other. So that's going to help me out a little bit, but they're going to catch back up to us, no doubt, because their pace is so much better. I have no answer for it. I just don't know what I'm doing wrong today in this race in terms of race pace. Meanwhile, Sainz then, after being pushed down the order with unfortunate timings of, you know, pit stops, not getting the undercut twice, he's up into P7. Hamilton's been overtaken, and the championship leader, though, has made a pit stop. Giovinazzi, late drama here with 2 laps to go, has to make a pit stop for, I'm guessing, some sort of damage in that fight with Sainz. That's so unfortunate then, so the championship leader will be scoring 0 points. That makes Russell's win even bigger, and that means our position in P3 is even more crucial maybe for the championship. But you can see I'm a sitting duck right now in a straight line. Even with all the ERS in the world, Gasly's going to fly past us up into P3. We're going to take the racing line. Oh, God. It's a howler. It's an absolute howler into turn 1. We were taking the racing line, trying to just set ourselves up for the next DRS zone after this very corner, and we've made a horrendous mistake. We've seen it before in real life sometimes. You just don't know where your front wing is, and you chop across a bit too early, and we've, our whole left-hand side front wing's been chopped off by Gasly's rear end. I don't think we conflicted any damage to Pierre, so I think he's actually going to continue on in P3. Well, you know, no bother to him, and also it'll be him on the podium then, alongside Leclerc, the double podium for AlphaTauri. Ocon up into P4, Norris now 5, Sainz 6th, and the BMW has just overtaken us for P7. I mean, fair play to BMW as Russell goes across the line to get his first race win of this season, and it's the team's first race win of this season. That is mighty annoying for me to see one of our biggest rivals, our new teammate, he's the one that gets the glory, that gets the title of having our first win of this season as a team, as we are now trying our best to just limp home in P8. We defended against Hamilton, and it was quite a comical sight behind us, as there were about 6 cars there, covered by about 2 tenths as we cross the line, because we're so slow through those last few corners. All around a really just messy Grand Prix for us.
A nearly flawless performance here then, and a commanding victory. And talk to me, what do you think it was that sealed the win for them?
Well, they played the safety car to absolute perfection. There are so many factors to worry about once the race is neutralised. I mean, do you pit for fresh rubber? Do you have the space behind you? How much fuel can you save? If you answer all of those questions correctly, you'll have a good chance. And that's exactly what happened today.
Welcome then to the podium, our top 3 drivers. What a great effort from them today in a very difficult race.
You can't say Russell's not deserved to win the race there, but that doesn't change how annoying it is for myself to see our rival and teammate, of course, in the same piece of machinery, which makes it even worse, really, because we should be, therefore able to reproduce that kind of result, and we're not. We weren't there, even before the incident with Gasly. We had, I don't know where our race pace went. It just wasn't there on the medium tyre. It just wasn't, and then it was just a really silly error for myself to chop across. I mean, I was just trying to set myself up for the DRS zone and just went a little bit too early. Didn't see where the front wing was, and it was too late at that point. Already nicked it and double lock up, wide at turn 1, and then a massive bit of damage to contend with. But the championship leader scores 0 points, so it's an even worse day in the office for him. And so it means that Giovinazzi, he is still in the lead though, having 2 wins in a row earlier and being the most consistent man so far. Still means he has a whopping 14-point lead despite that 0-point finish today. Russell with the win catapults himself up into P2. Bottas somehow remains in P3 still, even though I feel he's had a bit of a stinker in the last 2 episodes. We're in P4, just ahead of the 2 Ferrari cars. Somehow we've actually managed to get into the lead of the Constructors' Championship, all thanks to Russell, no thanks to me, and Red Bull also, both of them having a really poor showing today, with 0 points, I think, on the board for both Schumacher and Giovinazzi. So it's a very odd feeling, to be honest, because I've come away from this race just kind of annoyed at myself if we've not driven as well as I know we could around here and make the most of the car, and yet the team will be happy. And yet the whole team should be happy because we've got a race win on the other side of the garage and in the lead of the Constructors. So that's the kind of very weird dynamic when you're the team owner and also on the drivers. But Ferrari up into P3, yes, maybe bottled from a 1-2 to not even have a podium, but still a decent haul of points for them, and they actually get back ahead of likes of Mercedes and AlphaTauri. AlphaTauri though, they'll be very happy. They've got away from that fight with Lotus, Renault and Williams and kind of are back where they should be, kind of nipping at the heels of some of the more established names in Formula 1. Guys, if you did enjoy that episode, then be sure to hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.